From Wits University, we cross to our reporter Griselda Lewis, who's been covering this march, and as the students have been making their way back from the campus in Parktown to the main campus in Braamfontein.
Well, we're standing on the corner of Empire and Jan Smuts Road at the moment, where students are now moving from the education campus where they were to the main campus here in Braamfontein. They're being escorted by police right now, and the scenes that we're seeing at the moment are much calmer than we saw a bit earlier on, where police had fired stun grenades as well as tear gas at these protesting students. They've been marching throughout the morning. They're now running towards the KPMG, the corner of Jan Smuts, where we are, and Empire Road. These students basically saying that they're not going to let up on their protest until there is a response from the university, as well as the Higher Education Minister's office, about whether or not they will reverse their decision to give universities the authority to decide on how to hike the fees for 2015. Natasha, we're just going to cross a bit earlier on this afternoon. We did see or a bit earlier on this morning, we did see some scenes of volatility where the student leaders were not allowing some of the management from Wits University to address the media. And my colleague Maheketla Mutlabe, a bit earlier on during an interview that was disrupted by some of these student leaders when he was addressing the media on the way forward. Now, Professor Rob Sharman, who is the Dean of Student Affairs, was interrupted during that interview. Let's have a listen.
Much with people trying to get to the education campus. I was at the medical school this morning when the police arrived, and unfortunately there was a fairly tense standoff for a while. The students were asked to clear part of the road in order to allow ambulances and other vehicles to get through to the hospital, understandably. And the students, albeit somewhat reluctantly, started to comply. But unfortunately then a certain policeman seemed to have got excited, and they threw stun grenades, which of course caused a stampede. One or two students fell, and I think there may be minor injuries. Unfortunately, two of the stun grenades were thrown from a public street situation into university premises, and I don't know how desirable or advisable that is, especially as those landed amongst students who were fleeing and therefore caused more panic.
Talking about the stun grenade that was flew from the street into the campus, I mean, what is the university saying about this? Is this what you would actually say, well, it's a good way to deal with the students? Either way, even though police are on the main campus throwing stun grenades at the students, even though the students are not violent, is this what the university would actually say, well, it's a good way to deal with the students?
The university supports the concept of peaceful protest. And it's unfortunate that sometimes the authorities in dealing with students don't have the patience necessarily to discuss, negotiate, and come to some sort of calm resolution. Unfortunately, these things do happen, but fortunately a police colonel arrived shortly thereafter, and things have calmed down considerably. The police have withdrawn to a distance, and they're merely monitoring. The students at the moment are on our campus. They're not on a public street. They've been having a mass meeting. I'm shortly to hear the outcome of that.
Would it not be interesting for you to tell the country how you're not only going to demolish a residence and leave students without accommodation next year, but now you're increasing their fees? So first of all, we have homeless students already on campus because you're going to demolish PKV and EOH without having spoken to the student populace first, without having found alternative accommodation for them. And on top of that, you're increasing fees. So I'm very curious as to what you're telling people on TV right now.
I think the young lady had better direct her question to the Vice-Chancellor.
I will not direct my question at the Vice-Chancellor because I know exactly who I am talking about. You hold power as well, especially with regards to the accommodation that we have at this university. You do have a say. You do get to sit with the Vice-Chancellor and come up with agreements that don't involve the student population. You do get to sit with the Vice-Chancellor and decide to demolish an entire residence, EOH and PKV, because you want to create a parking lot for business students, right? For people who can afford to come to university, for people who can afford to have a parking lot instead of accommodation. So you need to tell us what you're doing here and what you're doing and what you're saying to these students, because one, majority of them don't have accommodation for next year because you're wiping that out. Second of all, you're trying to increase fees. So what exactly are you telling the nation? What narrative are you spinning out here that is contradicting what these masses of students are saying? We have students who are arrested right now in Hillborough Police Station, and you're standing here idle, looking smart for the cameras. What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be speaking to the media. You're not supposed to be presenting or speaking on behalf of any of these students or trying to calm the situation. The situation is not calm. The situation cannot be calm. It will not be calm. I'm curious.
I think that's about all for me.
Thank you. I'm curious. Thanks.
The bouncer has stabbed a student.
We need to get it.
There's a bouncer who stabbed a student. He's in there.
Then do you intend to help us solve this problem? Do you intend to go and speak to the Minister of Higher Education about us getting free education now? Do you intend to go and speak to the Vice-Chancellor about the accommodation crisis that we have at school at the moment? Do you intend to go and speak to the Vice-Chancellor even maybe about the food crisis that we have on campus? If you're not intending on moving, you must be useful for something. You can't just be standing idle. So are you going to be useful to us as students, or are you going to stand with management and we mow you down along with them?
I'm sorry, I can't respond to hysteria. Goodbye.
Why can't you respond?
Well, that was an interview conducted earlier by one of our colleagues at the scene of Wits University. The Dean of Student Affairs at Wits, Dean Sharman, being interrupted by a very irate student of Wits University. But certainly things seem a lot calmer now as the students have been moving back from the campus in Parktown to the main campus in Braamfontein. Let's get a sense of what's happening there. Our reporter Griselda Lewis is there. Right, we apologize for the loss of sound there, but staying with this now at the Northwest University, students are bracing themselves for protests. The students are up in arms, saying they are not prepared to accept anything other than a 0% increase.